All right, so let's talk about antinatalism. It's been a while, and I have a few topics. Today, I want to talk about the stability of antinatalism in a sense that when I think about the future and what would happen if I change my mind on antinatalism, there's something about it that points back at antinatalism. In that sense, it's a stable position, and I will explain what I mean by that in details. So before that, I have to give a kind of review of what I think and my position on antinatalism, and then I can explain exactly what happens. So just to make things simple, the main reason I'm an antinatalist is that I think that there is this kind of gap between what I think about the world and what my kid will think about the world, and I do not have the right to impose life on someone else, because it might be that they do not see life as something worth having. And because of that gap, I believe that it would be a violation of consent if I impose such a thing on someone else, on a rational creature who has a kind of freedom to think about its own position, and it wouldn't be morally right to do so. Now, when I talk about antinatalism in these terms, one of the main common objections that I receive in comments is that people start talking about how good life is, or that the fact that pains are very important, that they give meaning. And it's always interesting for me, because I don't know why they tell me that. It's as if they're just assuming that I do not agree with them. I don't agree that there is value in pain, or life is not good enough. And but that's not really my position. Actually, I have a very positive attitude about life. Actually, so positive that I can challenge people to see if they can come up with a more positive view about life. But that's not the point, right? So again, as I said, my position is that it really doesn't matter what your viewpoint about life is. The point is that there is a gap between what you think is the truth and what your rational, free child will think is the truth, and that gap cannot really be filled. So as I said, I have a very positive attitude about life. I believe in a good God. I believe that in the end, all the creatures that are capable of suffering and are suffering in this life will actually be shared a very good life, in a sense that we will all be united with God. And I know that you don't believe in this, so I'm just trying to explain that. Just imagine that this is true and see how positive that is, because that's my worldview. And I believe that in the end, everyone will actually declare that it's much better to exist. It's much better to have been. So you can say that that kind of worldview is so positive that it's kind of like on the verge of entailing natalism. Yet I'm an antinatalist, right? That's why it doesn't really make sense when I read those comments that people tell me, like, hey, there's this value in pain, like this is positive, that's positive. I'm like, I know, like, my position is much more positive even than that. I see evil and everything that happens in life is kind of a necessary condition for us to reach that eternal happiness, that eternal life with God. And that's something very positive. You cannot get really more positive than that. So why is it that I'm still an antinatalist? And the main thing is, again, that gap, right? Because in order for you to go from, okay, I see life as something positive like that, therefore I want to have a child, is to fill that gap, to have this kind of confidence in your own viewpoint about the world, that you say, okay, because I think this is right, and this is the truth, and this is indeed the truth, and my child will also see it as the truth. But that really doesn't work, right? And that confidence is something that actually shatters as you change, as you basically grow old in life and you change your mind on different topics. That's one of the ways that I really judge people to see how naive they are. when I see people who are really confident in what they're talking about, that they think that they've got it, that they've got the truth, they know this is it, it's over. That just means that they haven't really thought about their position, that they haven't really gone through life, they haven't changed their mind on it. Because when you change your mind, whether it comes that kind of humility, become humble. You think that, last year I was thinking in a different way, but now I'm thinking in a different way. I was not a stupid person back then. I'm not a stupid person right now. I'm thinking rationally, but my mind changes. So when you change your mind and you see that change in yourself, it brings with itself that humility, and that kind of prevents you from making that jump, that illegal jump from what you think is the truth and what it is actually the truth. Now that's the interesting part. Now, if this kind of confidence is required for you to be a natalist, which I believe it is, that you have to make that jump. When I start thinking about the future, in a sense that, okay, what if I change my mind in the future about antinatalism? That idea, that the fact that I need to change my opinion on that just shows that if that actually happens, that will actually be an argument for this whole point that I'm trying to make, because that change itself will actually make me more humble. I will realize that, hey, like I made a mistake. There was a time that I really thought antinatalism was right, but now I'm changing my mind. But that point itself, that experience itself will actually humble me, in a sense that it will actually widen that gap between what I think is the truth and what is actually truth, and what my child will see as truth. So in that sense, in a kind of very interesting paradoxical way, when I change my mind about antinatalism, I actually become an antinatalist again, because I start to see that gap more clearly, right? And in that sense, antinatalism is a kind of stable position. When I think about the future and I say, okay, what if I change my mind on that? I'm like, okay, but that exactly shows why I should be an antinatalist. Because if it's possible for me to change my mind on antinatalism, then my ideas about life are just my ideas at this point of time. I cannot even impose this on myself from 1 year ago or from myself next year. I don't know what's going to happen. I cannot make that jump even on myself, but so how can I make that jump for someone else? So that change, even in the belief in antinatalism, I believe brings with it a humility that will actually strengthen the position of antinatalism that I have, because it will actually show this argument that I'm making in a better light. So yeah, in that sense, I believe that there is a kind of a stability to antinatalism, in a sense that if you step out of it, that stepping out of it will actually help you to come back to antinatalism, as you will see that gap that I was talking about. I'm not sure if I made myself clear, because this is a feeling that I have that I'm trying to explain. Sometimes you sit down and you're trying to make a big decision or something about the idea that you have, and you're thinking, man, what if I change my mind? What if I regret this? And for antinatalism, I really don't get that. Not because I have this kind of dogmatic view about antinatalism. Actually, I think like, okay, let's say I change my mind, but the moment that I go through that experience, I say, okay, let's change my mind. I'm like, okay, but that exactly points back at antinatalism, because I realize it even more than I realize it right now, that what I think is true does not necessarily translate to what my kid will think as true, or what it actually is true. And that's why, even though I have this kind of very positive attitude about life, I'm not sure. I don't really know whether there's a God or anything of the things that I'm believing is true. So I cannot really make that jump, right? So that's a very interesting feeling about antinatalism that I have, that it basically shows to me how true this position is. The second interesting point about this whole discussion also is that you can see that you can have actually a very positive view about life and still be an antinatalist. The position that I'm actually advocating here, I'm not advocating, but the position I'm proposing here, not even proposing, just sharing my own worldview, right, is very positive. It's so positive that I doubt I can challenge anyone to come up with a more positive view on that. I think life is good and all the good stuff that comes with it, and I'm still an antinatalist, which basically means that antinatalism is not tied down to a kind of dark, very radical hatred about life. Atheists who think that life is not worth living, or they have this kind of bitterness and anger toward everyone and everything. It's not really about that. Antinatalism is completely independent of that kind of worldview that you can have. You can have that kind of bitterness, you can have this kind of positive view that I have about life, and still be an antinatalist. And that's a shift that I want to see in the antinatalist community, for people to become actually more positive. I mean, we don't need to be tied down to that kind of dark perspective. We can actually be very positive about life. We can love life. We can talk about joys of life. We can appreciate pain. We can appreciate helping each other make things better. Look for sustainable ways of preventing all these pains, and to understand the pain and suffering in a better light. And the way that actually all the natalists trying to explain in the comments, we can actually have all those philosophies and yet be an antinatalist. So I believe we can actually have this positive attitude, and I guess it's important that we do so, because it seems that antinatalism is kind of getting tied down to these kind of dark views, depressed, bitter views and worldviews. So I guess that's what I'm proposing, to be more positive, to be more open, to be more lifeist, if you prefer, and to see that antinatalism is actually a very stable and robust position, and really doesn't matter on which point of the spectrum you land on. You can still be an antinatalist. Cheers.